All right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Threads of Recovery workshop. My name is Debbie. I am an alcoholic with a sobriety date of February 28th, 2014. I have stated that I am an alcoholic. Do we have any other alcoholics in the meeting? Wave, smile, dance. All right. I love to be with all of you. Acknowledging God's presence with a moment of silence, we'll follow that with the set-aside prayer. Lord, help me set aside everything I think I know about you, everything that I think I know about myself, everything that I know about my fellows, everything I think I know about my own recovery. For a much-needed new experience in you, myself, and my fellows, and a new experience in my own recovery. Help me see the truth. Amen. 1058 Threads of Recovery continues to offer virtual workshops 5 days a week. To be included in our weekly email, send your request to threads1058@gmail.com. This will keep you up to date on our workshops. Our group follows the 12 traditions. We stick to our singleness of purpose. We ask everyone to act as if they are in a live meeting. Turn your camera on if you can. We'd love to see your smiling faces. The 7th tradition states every AA group ought to be fully self-supporting, declining outside contributions. The contributions help to cover the group's expenses. But the 7th tradition is more than simply paying for rent and other group expenses. It is both a privilege and a responsibility of individual groups and members to ensure that our organization at every level remains forever self-supporting and free of outside influences that might divert us from our primary purpose. The monetary amount of each contribution is secondary to the spiritual connection that joins us in unity with AA groups around the world. 7th tradition contributions can be made using Venmo, and all the details are in the chat. This is an open meeting. Open meetings are available to anyone interested in Alcoholics Anonymous's program of recovery from alcoholism. Non-alcoholics are welcome to attend open meetings as observers. And now it is my great pleasure to introduce today's speakers, speaking on steps 10 and 11, Terry and Babe.
Hey, my name's Terry. I'm an alcoholic. Come on in, babe.
Hey, kids, Babe, alcoholic.
Good to be here. Good to be here. We get to talk about some very fun steps today. Let me just put my timer on. Yet again, I do have to go to work shortly afterwards, so I do have to jump off a little before 2. But I'll be in transit on my phone, so I'll put that thing on. All right, cool. Let's rock and roll. Let's have some fun. Spiritual life is not a theory. We have to live it. All right, babe? What is the point of doing the steps? What's the point? The point is that we get to live them as a way of life. And it's asked us on step 10. We're on page 84. I hope you brought your big books to class. Remember, we carry this message. What message? The message of Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. All right. Bring your book to each meeting that you go to. Why is that? Because the message can get diluted. I think you guys heard me more than once say this, right? You know, if I say the common solution is a spiritual experience, and I tell Annette, she tells Debbie, and then Debbie tells Debbie again, and then Debbie tells Babe, and Babe comes back to me and says, the New York Jets won the Super Bowl, right? The integrity of our message is contained in our literature, which is the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. So step 10, I've entered the world of the spirit. Says this thought brings us to step 10, which suggests we continue to take personal inventory and continue to set right any new mistakes as we go along. So it's going to ask me, have I entered this world of the spirit? How do I know if I've entered the world of the spirit? Am I experiencing the 9-step promises? Have they come into fruition in my life? I love asking newcomers, hey, can you explain the world of the spirit? A little difficult to explain. You can only experience it. And I go to the 9-step promises and I ask them individually, and each one has come into fruition in their life. And it's not an intellect thing. It is very intuitive, these amends. So go back to page 83. If I've been painstaking, which means with great care, about this phase of my development, I will be amazed before I'm halfway through. Halfway through with what? My amends. I'm going to know a new freedom and a new happiness. Definition of new, something I've never experienced before. I will not regret the past, nor wish to shut the door on it. I will comprehend the word serenity, and I will know peace, right? Freedom from disturbance. And that's something that the mind or the intellect cannot comprehend. This is a soul thing, right? No matter how far down the scale I have gone, I will see how my experience can help others. My story can help not just alcoholics, but more other people in my life as well. Families of Alcoholics Anonymous, my coworkers, my friends. My story could have benefits to everyone. And I learned that through the process of amends, especially asking that question, hey, how can I make this right? And then the second question, is there any other harms that I've done to you that I should know about? Very important question. I highly recommend not dipping and dodging that question. I had someone, I asked him that question, and he's like, you know what, Terry, there is something that that you've done that I wanted to bring to your attention. He says, you said no to me every single time I asked you to come and hang out and do a certain activity. And I had no idea. And he's like, I even counted it. This guy counted it. How many times I said no to him? You know how many times he counted? 249 times. That's what he said to me. And I was like, whoa. And I told him, right then and there, I was like, I'll do my best to say yes. And I have. And I've seen how my experience could benefit others. He has seen the transformation in me, and he has also looked at my way of life and possibly consideration my way of life as well. I don't want to get too dive into that, but yet again, my story could benefit others, right? He has seen me at my deepest and darkest part of my life, and he has seen me have a recreation. I've been resurrected from the dead. This guy is always happy without a drink. What's up with him? Because he's a drinker. You never know. You never know who you're going to help. That feeling of uselessness and self-pity will disappear. I love how those two are in the same sentence, like why are they, right? And what's the point of the steps? To get me to practice this as a way of life so I could be useful. So if I'm useful, I'm not in self-pity. If I'm useful, I'm not in fear. If I'm useful, I'm not in selfishness. If I'm useful, I'm not in all the defects of character. Right? They start to go away. I will lose interest in selfish things and gain interest in my fellows. I look forward to seeing people. I mean, I was just so self-centered, and I was a lone wolf. Let's just say that. And yet again, I talked about this last week. I start to work this compassion muscle when I make these amends. I start to care for you. I start to look out for you. I start to think about you. That's revelatory. I just thought about me. Babe is going to talk about that. These are the unselfish promises, right, babe? Our whole our self-seeking will slip away. Self-seeking is what I want when I want it, right? And what I want when I want it is going to go away. I started noticing that. I care about you. What can I be for you? What can I do for you? What can I be for you? Do you need someone to talk to? These are thoughts that never crossed my mind before I got sober. It was always about me, me, me. My whole attitude and outlook upon life would change, right? This goes from external to internal, right? I'm looking at life through a different pair of glasses, through a different pair of lenses. Fear of, that means it's self-manufactured, right? It's internal. Fear of people and of economic insecurity will leave us. Where'd it go? It was funny. I made an amend, and I remember after I made the amend, I was in a grocery store, I think a grocery store, someplace where there's multiple people. I knew someone, and usually when I see someone that I know them, you kind of look the other way. You kind of don't. You can see them in your peripherals, right? But you know that you don't want them to see them, and I usually go dark the other way. And I remember I made an amend the previous night, and I just walked right at the person. I'm like, hey, how are you doing? God took that away from me. God did not give me the spirit of fear. It's all self-manufactured. It's all internal, right? And it says, we will suddenly realize, suddenly is a time frame. That means right here, right now. I will suddenly realize what God is doing for me, what I could never do for myself. And another spiritual exercise to see if you've had these 9-step promises come into fruition, look at what God's doing for you. When I suddenly realized that God was doing for me what I could never do for myself was when I made my amends. And I started to realize I'm not thinking about drinking. I'm not dreaming about it. I start to look and watch my life change. I did the work and God worked on me. The change came over me. I suddenly realized that. Are these extravagant promises? We think not. They're being fulfilled among us sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly. They will always materialize if we work for them. These are extravagant promises, right? They really are extravagant. I mean, how amazing is this stuff? You can't make it up. So that thought of making my amends brings me to step 10, which is I continue to take personal inventory and continue to set any new mistakes as I go along. Not new faults, not new wrongs, mistakes. Mistakes are just invitations to a lesson learned, right? I'm not looking to be the tornado roaring through the lives of others. I learned that in the 9th step. I'm no longer in the business of hurting you. I make mistakes in sobriety. I'm human. As I go along, I continue to watch for these things. So I vigorously commence this way of living as I cleaned up the past. Very important sentence, meaning I start 10 and 11 while I make my amends, right? I practice the disciplines of 10 and 11 to drive every single one of my amends. I'm going to make every one of them. And I need an acquisition of power to do it. I think I talked a little bit last week. Say I have fear about making amend the babe, right? And all of a sudden I ask God, hey God, can you remove this fear about making amend? And I don't feel anything. Okay, go discuss it. Hey, Annette, I have fear about making this amend the babe. And that's like, shut the F up, Terry, go make the amend. Okay. Or I go turn my thoughts to someone I can help. What about those other alcoholics? What about my other family members? Because God gave me the power to turn my thoughts to someone I can help. I get out of this and over to you. I'm thinking about you. I'm not thinking about this because this little narrative ahead and these little minions are going to feed me BS. What's going to happen? This is the scenario. This is how the amend's going to go. It's all BS. 9 out of 10 times the unexpected will happen. What do you mean? Because I'm expecting this is going to happen with the amend. It never goes the way that I think it's going to go. Period. I need to have people who are messengers and conduits of God in my life. I mean, if you think about it, if people think that God is their sponsor, then God has a fool for a sponsee, straight up, right? I need messengers. I need recovered alcoholics in my life to post me up and to hold me accountable, right? Who are in a recovered state, who identify with the 10-step promises. How do you know if you're a recovered alcoholic? Do I identify with the 10-step promises? How do I know that I'm ready to help other people? That's a good question. Am I experiencing the 10-step promises? Right? So there's a bunch of spiritual. So have I entered the world of the spirit? I talked about that. And our next function is to grow in. This is a growth step in understanding and effectiveness. So what is effectiveness? How well am I carrying out God's will? Right? That's and what is God's will? It's basically the opposite of my will. Pretty simple, right? What is God's will? He wants me to live right here, right now, living from moment to moment to moment to moment to moment. Guys, I worship the menu, but not the meal in Alcoholics Anonymous. I looked at this step and I thought it was just doing the 10th step at night. That's what I literally thought it was. It is not. The 10th step is a flow. It's living right here, right now, living these steps as a way of life. Right? So what am I going to do? How am I going to grow in understanding? How well am I listening to the great reality within me? You know, that little voice in that tells you to stop fully at a stop sign instead of blowing right through it. That's the voice that we're going to be listening to. That's what we're building a relationship with here right now. So this is the intent of step 10, to grow in effectiveness and understanding. So I've been rocketed into this fourth dimension. What am I supposed to do here? I'm supposed to grow in effectiveness and understanding. I'm supposed to grow in the image and likeness of my creator. And there's a ton of spiritual exercises that I want to go over with you. The big five are in here, but I'm going to challenge everyone in this room that we're going to do a little bit more spiritual exercises, right? Because the spiritual life is not a theory. We have to live it. So I'm going to take a bunch of these things out and I'm going to go through it. So the first spiritual exercise, before I go there, this is not an overnight matter. It, which is to grow in effectiveness and understanding, should continue for our lifetime. So babe, I got some great news, babe. Right? I got some good news, I got bad news, and I got great news. What do you want to hear first? Okay, good news, this program works. It works. Bad news, babe, you got to do it for the rest of your life. Pew, 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 pew. The great news is that your life becomes indescribably wonderful when you do it. Right, Annette? Your life changes. Transformations happen here. And it starts here, right? Because right now we're in the land of milk and honey. We are in the fourth dimension. We are in the realm of the spirit. We are here right now. This is how we're operating in spirit world, how we're operating in the world of the spirit. This shows us how to do that. So the first spiritual exercise is to continue to watch. Watch for what? The manifestations of self, right? Resentment, fear, dishonesty, all that other stuff, right? Babe, I heard Babe talk about this. It made into a lot of sense. He talked about the 7 deadly sins. And I used to take, those little packets that they have you with 100 defects of characters and all that, right? And I try to analyze each one. They all go under the big umbrella of the big 4, right? Selfishness, dishonesty, self-seeking, and fear. Why did my thumb go up on my screen? Okay, I'm operating in spirit world. Why not? All right. And what do the 7 deadly sins go under? They go under selfishness. And I'm watching for these. Watch. I highly recommend that you take a note card, you put it on your phone, and you practice watch all throughout the day. Watch. You guys ever drink and drove before? I have. You're drinking and driving, or you going like that? I'm watching. Watch. Please, watch. Road, lights, bro. I'm the best drunk driver ever. Watch. I'm watching. I'm watching for my manifestations of self. And all of a sudden, I start to notice collisions. I start to notice disturbances. Why? Because I said this, Debbie likes this. Whenever I'm disturbed, it's because I'm disturbable. Whenever I'm upset, it's because I'm upsettable. Whenever I'm offended, it's because I'm offendable. There's something wrong with me, the spiritual axiom that it talks about in the 12 and 12, right? There's something wrong with me. If there is collision, and I'm watching for this, that means there's selfishness and self-centeredness intact. That means I got to write some inventory, and I need to uncover, discover, and discard this stuff so I could get back into the land of milk and honey, back into the fourth dimension. Right? Because I feel unsettled, right? Because I'm this victim of the delusion that I could wrest satisfaction and happiness out of this world if I only manage well. And I think I'm managing well at work, but why do I hate going to work? Because there's selfishness and self-centeredness intact, because I'm watching. I practice watch a lot. And what do? I have little sticky notes in my car. It says watch. I've taken this practice. I've done it 1 day. I've done it 2 days. I've done it for a week. I've tried it for 6 months, right? And I've watched myself so many times that I've actually seen myself being driven. So I see my authentic self will see my alter self being driven. It was wild. And I'm like, am I being driven right now? Am I a sleepwalker out of awake right now? And my first experience with that was that someone hit my car. I was at work. And I was parked outside of work, and it's on a main road, and someone hit and ran my car. And I was like, who hit my car? Who did that? Where are the cameras? And I'm watching that day, but now I'm stuck in self because I'm pissed. Someone hit and ran my car. And I have a belief system that I will never hit someone's car and run away. Why does my thumb keep going up? Okay, God. I guess it's my time to wrap up on watch. So I'm pissed off for 1 hour. And I remember watching, and I remember practicing watching. I actually used to put my alarm on my phone for every 30 minutes. It would ring, and then I would either do the third step prayer or I would say watch. Because I myself am an extreme example of self-rule-run, right? And I don't even know it. So I have an alarm clock will go ring, 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 and I will go do that prayer, or I could go start to watch again because I like to go off tilt. How fast can I get back to the beam? How fast can I get back to the beam? How fast can I get back to the beam? That's what we're doing here. This is how we grow in effectiveness and understanding. This is how we grow in the image and likeness of my Creator. And what did? I asked God to remove it. That's our spiritual exercise number 2. When these things crop up, it's not if they crop up, it's when they crop up. So they're going to crop up. When these things crop up, I'm going to ask God at once to remove them, take them from me, right? Because there's a snowball effect that could happen. I could stay pissed off, really pissed off that this person hit and ran my car. And if I don't ask God to remove it, that snowball becomes bigger. What's the next spiritual exercise? Discuss, discuss, discuss. If I don't discuss it with anyone, I'm going to talk. Who am I going to discuss it with? This person right up here, up in my minion head over here. That snowball becomes bigger. What's going to happen? I have a separation from God. The spiritual malady. The manifestations of the spiritual malady, what is that? The bedevilment start to run rampant in my life. And I'm totally cut off, and I have been to the jumping off place in recovery because I was not practicing the disciplines of 10 and 11, right? Next spiritual, discuss. I love this one. Personally, well, before I go there, let's practice ask. You have a bunch of prayers that are throughout this book. I highly recommend you post them, memorize a few, set of them, whatever you need to do. Anyone been to New York City? Anyone out here, New York? No one from, or I know, babe, you've been in New York at least. Thank you. Okay. So you're in the subway, you see someone who's homeless and they have schizophrenia, right? And they're talking to themselves, right? That's what I do when I practice ask all day. Practice, talk to yourself. God, please remove my fear and direct my attention where it be. Thy will is being done. Show me the way, God. This is a sick person. How can I be helpful to them? Talk, ask, pray. Use that all throughout the day and then write your experience down at the end of the day. Next spiritual exercise, discuss. I'm going to start talking to multiple people every day. That's my least favorite thing to do in the 10 step is to discuss, right? It really is. Why? Because I love to talk to me. Or I think God took it away, but I'm still being driven in that moment. Discuss. Yet again, I talked about it. I need other recovered alcoholics in my life to post me up on my BS, to hold me accountable. I highly recommend you get 5 to 10 people around you that are in a recovered state that could post you up. That would give you the real truth, some tough love, if you like to say. Okay. Spiritual exercise number 4, make amends quickly, right? I mean, it's very important. If I don't make amends in that moment, it's like riding on a flat tire and then just hoping one day it will go away. Like, I need to make amends quick. These are all time frames, everyone. I forgot to mention this. It says, ask God at once. That means now, right? Immediately. Now, make quickly, now. This is living right here, right now with God, right? 5th spiritual exercise, well, I'm running out of time here. 5th spiritual exercise, to turn. I'm going to turn my thoughts to someone I can help. What about those other alcoholics? What about my family? How's my brother doing? I actually haven't spoken to my brother in a long time. Turn. Watch, ask, discuss, turn. Watch, ask, discuss, turn. These start to become a part of your nucleus. It starts to become part of who you are when you start to practice it all throughout the day. I started with 1 per day, then it became 2, then it became 3, and then all 5 just become integrated as a way of life, right? The spiritual life is not a theory. I have to live it, right? And because of this way of life, it offsets the obsession and makes me happy, useful, and whole all the time. Look at Babe. I mean, Babe's happy all the damn time. Why? Why is that? Because he's practicing the disciplines of 10, 11, and 12. Spiritual exercise number 6. Love and tolerance of others is our code. Well, look at your current codes right now. Is making money your code? Is taking naps your code? Is slander or gossip your code? You're going to have to look at your current codes and ask God to take them away from you. Love and tolerance is not easy, right? Try loving people who are unlovable all day. Anyone have a crappy boss? I called my boss a clown one day. So yeah, who has a boss who's a clown? I do. Try loving that person all throughout the day whenever I'm at work. Try practicing tolerance all throughout the day. with him. You'll start to love people who are unlovable. You'll start to be tolerant of people who are intolerant. And while you do this, you start helping sponsees who are cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs in the beginning. Who's cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs in the beginning? I was crazy. I was outright mental defective. Imagine if someone's not practicing the disciplines of 10 and 11 and come across someone who's outright mental defective. I need to practice love and tolerance. I need God to show me how to be loving, how to be tolerant to these people. Right? It says we treat, in meditation, we treat sex like any other problem. Our relations together. I need to learn. I need God to show me how to love people who are crappy. And he will show you if I want to change. When you start loving everyone, your life changes. I'm no longer in disturbances anymore at these places that I used to be. Here's the next spiritual exercise. And we cease fighting anything or anyone, even alcohol. That also includes ourselves. We cease fighting ourselves as well. That's another spiritual exercise. Put that on a note card and start practicing that throughout the day. Cease fighting, cease fighting, cease fighting, cease fighting. Cease is a time frame too. Cease. That's in the moment. Cease fighting, cease fighting. I remember my wife was yelling at, she was talking to me and then she started yelling at me about the dishes. And I remember I was practicing cease fighting that day. Cease fighting, Terry, don't say anything. Don't say anything. And I didn't fight her. I said, okay, I'm sorry, honey, I'll take care of that. Cease fighting, cease fighting, cease fighting, cease fighting. Next spiritual exercise on page 85. Here's a fun one. Where is it down? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 lines down. It says, we feel as though we've been placed in a position of neutrality, safe and protected. So this is also called clocks and watches. When I first heard this, and by the way, I worked with someone who was Mark Houston's sponsee, so he helped me with a lot of this stuff. And this is all revelatory stuff that changed my life. And I practice clocks and watches of being in a place of neutrality. Don't look at a clock or a watch for 6 to 12 hours. I'm going to say that one more time. Don't look at a clock or a watch for 6 to 12 hours and live a completely God-directed life. Watch yourself get to places without you using a watch. Watch you show up to places without you using a watch. Why? Because I'm dependent on this. I'm dependent on human power. Imagine me being 100% dependent upon God. My real relationship is on him. God will constantly disclose more to you and others, right? I remember I practiced it the first time. It was scary. Don't take my phone away from me, right? I just got to places that I never would have dreamed that I would ever get to. I got to work on time. I remember I said, I'm going to do this. I think I'm going to try it out. And I remember waking up that morning, didn't know what time it was, just looked outside, just got in my car and went to work. I literally got there 5 minutes before I was supposed to get there at work. I had no idea. And I did prayer, meditation, all that right before that. This blew my mind. If I'm 100% willing to absolutely let go and God direct me inside out. Watch God change your life and move you to places where you never thought you would ever be if you needed to watch. It's wild. Here's a death threat. I don't recommend you practice it, but you could practice if you like. This is the favorite thing I like to practice. It is easy to let up on a spiritual program of action and rest on our laurels. I love practicing that one. My ego loves that one. Why? Because I don't like doing the work. The ego doesn't like doing this. This is the completely opposite way of living that I did for the last 20 years. It really is. Spiritual exercise number 9. Every day is a day we must carry the vision of God's will into all our activities. I actually like to combine that with the next spiritual exercise. This is 10. How can I best serve thee? How can I best serve thee? Right? Serving the God of love is not a part-time job. How best can I serve God? Thy will be done, not mine be done. I like to say thy will is being done. That means I'm doing it right here, right now. So I combine those two with the vision, and I combine that with thy will is being done. So thy will is being done, show me the way. Thy will is being done, show me the way. Give me a vision. Give me a vision. Thy will is being done, show me the way. Right? And all of a sudden I start practicing this stuff. And yet again, I talked about it earlier. It starts to become who I am. I start to become a demonstration of how it works. I start to become a demonstration of inaction. I start to become a demonstration of the words in this book. right? All this knowledge is fantastic. It doesn't mean crap if I'm not practicing and applying it in my life as a way of life. And because of that, this essence starts to happen. Is what is called God consciousness, this vital sixth sense. What is this vital sixth sense? God consciousness. That threw me off a loop when I first read it. Like, what is that vital sixth sense? So think about all your other five senses: sight, taste, touch, all that. And God consciousness is right there, overlapping everything. God is intertwined in my sight. He's intertwined in my hearing. He's intertwined in my feeling. He is now the centerpiece of my life. He is now the central fact of my life. Right, babe? Step 11. Before I go there, it says, if we carefully follow directions, hold on. I thought this was a book of suggestions. Where'd that one throw? We have begun to sense the flow of his spirit into us. Where's the great reality? Where's God? He's deep down in every man, woman, and child. This is what we're doing. We're going back home. We're going back to our authentic state. This is how we grow. We grow and develop this relationship with our true authentic self. It says, thy will, not mine be done. Not mine's in parentheses. Then you go to page 88, it says, thy will be done. What happened to the parentheses? Because step 10 is all about destruction of me and more God. Less me, more God. Less me, more God. And step 10 and 11 are joint at the hip, right? Step 11 is morning and at night, right? And then when I walk out the door, Barbara, it's game on, baby. Like it's game on. That's step 10 all throughout the day. This is the 24-hour program. This is our way of living. So step 11 suggests prayer and meditation. I got 10 minutes. So it says and meditation, so that we're doing them together. So what is prayer? Prayer is the highest form of communication. That's not to me, to this little cuckoo for Cocoa Puff brain. It's the highest form of communication that is not to me, right? And what is meditation? Meditation is listening to God, right? Which is also another words for focused thinking. I learned this when I read Purpose Driven Life. I know, Kathy, you read that, right? My sponsor and I read that book. We started, what was it? 3 years ago? Has it been 3 years? So we started reading that book, Purpose Driven Life, at 8 a.m. And we did it every single day because you got to do it day by day. And he's still reading a book every single day for the last 3 years. They read The Power of Now. We read Dr. Bob and the Good Old Timers. They're still going on at 8 o'clock in the morning every single day, led by my sponsor. I'll put it in the chat. Wonderful. I forgot what book they're on right now. But that book talked about focused thinking, which is meditation. It's not me going into a room going zoom like that and all that. Meditation is focused thinking. So here's what it said in the Purpose Driven Life. If you know how to worry, you know how to meditate. So when you worry, you focus your thinking on the problem. When you meditate, you focus your thinking on the solution and on God's word. And that's what we do here. And I looked, here's this inventory that everybody get confused with the 10 step and 11 step. It's just a review of our day. So step 10, so think of it like a skyscraper, right? You have a skyscraper, Empire State Building, right? And they have a net right here in the middle, right? And what you do, you throw a little rock on top of that to the floor, and that net in the middle will catch it. That's step 10. Then we have step 11, which is reviewing our 10 step throughout the day, which will catch it just in case. And I'm reviewing it. I'm constructively reviewing this. I'm not deconstructively reviewing my day. For a long time, I would look at my day and I look at shame, guilt, and remorse. No, we are constructively reviewing this. Where was I selfish? Where was I dishonest? Where was I resentful? Do I owe an apology? Have I kept something to myself which should be discussed with another person at once? Was I kind and loving towards all today? That's one of the hardest things. Yet again, am I practicing love and tolerance, right? And it was funny. I want to slow down for a second here. My first day in treatment in Minnesota, I get there, and they at nighttime, we did this thing called 11 at 9. We did the 11th step at 9 p.m. And we would read this paragraph out loud to everyone individually. I had no idea that I was practicing this way of life on day one. You don't have to wait until step 11 to start. Start now. Why? What's the point of doing the steps? So that you can live them. Why do I have this memorized? Because I've been doing this since day one for the last 4 years. Right? And I look at this inventory, I constructively review it, and here's a prayer, and prayer and meditation go together. So I'm focused. Why is an inventory in step 11? And I think I heard a speaker talk about this. Yet again, what is meditation? Meditation is focused thinking. Isn't writing inventory a form of focused thinking? Yes. Why does my thumb keep going up? Okay, I'm just going to put my thumbs up on that. Yes. And I have a prayer while I'm writing as well. And afterwards it says, but I must be careful not to drift. I like to drift when don't drift. Drift into worry, that's the future. Remorse is the past. And morbid reflection, the present. Don't drift. It's just a constructive review, not a deconstructive review, my day, a constructive review. I'm just collecting information. So what? That I have corrective measures to take on to the following morning. Right. Then I wake up on awakening. I think about the 24 hours a day. This has changed a lot. In the beginning of recovery, I was very on the book, reading it every single day, doing what it said. Now I just kind of make sure it's my little things in the morning have changed. When I wake up in the morning, I say, hey, good morning, God. Terry, you're an alcoholic. Pay attention. And I'm like, oh, okay, pay attention. You're an alcoholic. Remember who you are. Remember that pain. And I remember that pain. I remember why I stopped. Because if I tell you right now, if I forget that moment that I'm an alcoholic, I'm in danger, right? Because if I took one, see, the person that was 4 years ago, he's dead. He's gone, long gone. But if I took one drink today, Deb, if I took one drink today, that person would be easily resurrected. And he's back, right? He is back. Right? So I remind myself. Then I go into step 2. There is a God, it ain't me. And then I go into step 3. I said, do the right thing right now. And then I go into on awakening. Right? And I think about consider my plans for the day. What plans? My corrective measures from the previous inventory I wrote the night before. Right? And then why do we write? I'm going to stop right there. Why do we write inventory? Why is it? I was explained to this. The day starts at night. And that just didn't make any sense to me. Why am I writing inventory at night as part of an 11 step? Because if I need to clean house at night, if I'm still resentful, I'm not meditating in the morning. I'll tell you that right now. If I'm in fear and I don't ask God to remove this, and I ask for forgiveness and what corrective measures I could take, if I don't do any of this, I'm going to have a difficult time meditating. Anyone in meditation, they can't last more than 1 hour because these little minions in our head are just talking so loud. Work. What's going on with work? Make money, Terry. Make money. How's Bitcoin? Let's check out Bitcoin. That's what's going through my head when I wake up. If I don't clean the house at night and I don't practice 10 throughout the day, I'm going to have a difficult time with meditation. And what I really want to focus on is this thing with listening to God. And yet again, like, I was talking to God a lot. I really was. But I wasn't really listening to God. And I changed my life reading Wally P's book on how to listen to God. Two-way prayer changed my life as well. It's like me talking to Babe. Hey, Babe, how's the weather in Orleans, New York? And I just hang up the phone on him. Or, hey, Debbie, how's the weather in Illinois? And I just hang up the phone on you. Or, Debbie M., how's the weather in Texas? And I hang up the phone on her. Or Annette, how's the weather in Alabama? Right? I think so. And I hang up the phone on her. I got to listen to what they have to say. This is how I have a conscious relationship with God, not an unconscious relationship with God. Right? This is how I start to have inspirational thinking. And what you practice grows stronger. Right? It's like learning a language. Right? It's like learning an instrument. Right? You learn a bit more, it starts to become what? A working part of your mind. That vital sixth sense, right? And I take this meditative state out into the world with step 10, right? And what I start doing is this big thing about relaxing and take it easy. And I remember I had some fear about, and the best thing about two-way prayer, you can do it anytime. You don't have to just do meditation in the morning. You can just stop what you're doing and do it anytime. And I had this tremendous fear about making money or how this job situation was going to go or whatever it was. It had to deal with money. And it was a belief system that I had that I need money to live. And I remember I wrote down and I was writing this and my money problem, and I asked God for a thought, and whatever thought that comes in, you just write it down, and you could converse it with other people to check if it's you who wrote it or that God wrote it, and then you take action on that thought. And I wrote down that money is just paper. That did not come from this mind up here. I'll tell you that. You could rip it. That's what I wrote down. Right, and then I thought about if I'm on my deathbed and I got 2 to 3 days to live, am I going to be thinking about how much money is in my bank account? No, I'm not. Am I going to be thinking about all the diplomas and accolades and awards in my life? No, I'm going to be thinking about all the relationships in my life, the people that mean the most to me. I'm going to be thinking about all the moments that I've lived in the fourth dimension. I'm going to be thinking about that stuff. It totally changed my way because I listened to it. Because God is talking to us all the time, God. All the time. I just have to listen to what I have to say. Pause, listen, right? I got 2 minutes. I don't even know how, there's no way I'm going to go through all this in 2 minutes. I'll jump to pause. So as I go through the day, I pause. Right? When agitated, that's my emotions, or doubtful, that's my thinking. I ask for the right thought or action. So this is telling me I need to pray 3 times a day. I pray in the morning, I pray at night, and I pray all throughout the day. So you pray all the time, right? So I stop, pause, take notice, take action, turn to God. Stop, take notice, take action, turn to God. So when shit hits the fan, sorry I cursed, sorry about that. So when sheesh hits the fan, where's my thumbs up thing? All right, whatever. There it is. So when shish hits the fan, I stop, take notice, take action, turn to God. I go clean that fan. I go back and clean the fan. That's what I do today. Watch, ask, discuss, pause, turn. It starts to become part of who I am, part of my nucleus, part of who I, and because of this, I start to have an acquisition of power to make every single one of my amends. That's the big one. That's where I get tremendous freedom when I start making every amend, because I bulk on this stuff. And it says on the next page, here's our 11th step promises. We are then much less danger of excitement, fear, anger, worry, or self-pity, or foolish decisions, right? And where do we learn that? I mean, look on page 37. Whoever had justified resentments and went to go drink. Whoever had justified worry went out and drank. I did. I'm justified. Someone hit and ran my car. I'm going to go drink. I'm in much less danger of that because I'm living right here, right now, intertwined with God. Excitement, that threw me off for a loop for a long time. Think about, I'm walking by a store and it's a Nike store and they have 99.9% off. I'm like, oh my God, I got a big sale. Hold on, where's my wallet? I don't have my wallet on me. I'm excited. I'm freaking out. I'm totally disconnected from God. That just kind of made sense to me with the word excitement, right? And it says, we do not tire solely, for we're not burning up energy foolishly as we did when we were trying to arrange the life to suit ourselves. I say this all the time. I'm no longer running the show. I'm no longer running the show. It's another spiritual exercise that I practice all the time. I constantly I put it on your alarm clock, everyone. If you're in the beginning, in the first year, or whatever, how many years you have, doesn't matter. Put it in your alarm clock for every 45 minutes and just put a prayer, surrender your life to God, remind yourself you're no longer running this show, thy will is being done, pause, ask, discuss, turn, and watch your life change. Because this little mind could drift for a long time. When that alarm goes off, I'm like, okay, get back to the beam, Terry. Back to the beam. I'm in less danger of bad stuff is going to happen. Because bad stuff's going to happen. And it's happened in my life. What happened? I had a friend die. He was one of my employees. And, I don't know where this came up, but so he had a heart attack outside. We both work at a pizza restaurant. I also own my own junk removal business. He worked with me. And he had a heart attack. He dropped dead. Right? And I was, the first thing I thought about was calling his family. I called his son because I also employ his son. And I talked to him. I was on the phone with his wife while they were pumping his chest while he was on the floor. They're asking me what's going on. Tell me. I knew he wasn't alive. He looked purple and red. I'm just like, look, they're working on him. I'm with you right now. I thought about other people. Wasn't thinking about myself. Like, oh, this is a terrible situation. Let's go post on Facebook about it. No, I'm thinking about you. I'm thinking about her family, right? Talk about a spiritual experience. And I remember I'm at the funeral, and the next day we're at the pizzeria, and everyone is so down and so glum and all that. And the first thought I had was that it's my job to cheer them up. It's my job to be an agent of God, a spearhead of his ever-advancing creation, right, babe? We read that last night, and go help them. Turn, useful. As discussed, turn. Watch God show up and change me. And he did. I was there for people who were hurting because I was practicing this stuff. Because God is the centerpiece of my life. He made me go towards that. You know, I don't know where that came from. Okay. It works. It really does. We alcoholics are undisciplined. Oh, really? So we let, I like that word let. I've been working with that word let throughout the book. If you ever see the word let, just underline and circle it. Practice that. Take that sentence out. Let go absolutely. Try letting go absolutely all day. See how that works, right? Watch your life change when you let go of everything, right? Let God discipline me through the simple way he just outlined. What outlined? What he just said before. But that's not all. Damn, babe. Damn, there's a lot of stuff that I covered. There's more action and more action. Faith without works is dead, right? The next chapter is entirely devoted to step 12. I don't know how we're going to get through step 12 in one sitting next week, but I want to talk about the third part of the 12 step, which is demonstrating these principles in all my affairs, because I think that's where the juice is at. So yet again, my name's Terry. I'm a recovered alcoholic. Thank you very much. I'm looking forward to hearing Babe. Come on in, Babe.
Whoa, thank you. Yeah, watch. Watch God enter your life and change your heart. Terry just said that. I don't have to focus on the 87 character defects, everything. And what a beautiful, well thought out. I was actually give some thought to what I'm going to say. And then I said, surprise me, God. So I don't know what I'm going to say, because steps 10 and 11 are the summary of the whole process of recovery. Anybody ask, when do you recover? Read the 10-step promises. Read the paragraph before. We have entered the world of the Spirit. Gee, it sounds so innocuous. Continue to take in personal inventory, and when I'm wrong, properly admit it. Sounds like, well, ain't much to that one. And little did Bill to look at how he changed from the big book to the 12 and 12. He learned a lot in those 15 years. But I love to look at what are we doing this for? Why am I doing this? You know, go to page 25. It tells us it's a process. That's what this book is. That's what Terry did. And that's why you're not going to get any of this from me, because Terry's was orderly spiritual exercises and helpful information. I'm just going to babble because God has been so great to me. I just want to tell the world. And what does it say on page 25? If you want what we have, what is recovery? And Terry touched on it, you know, that we've been rocketed in this fourth dimension of existence. First of all, this is a process. And those people that went through this process have had deep, effective spiritual experiences that revolutionize their whole attitude toward God, toward the universe, toward the people, toward everything. A new entire psychic change, a new way of looking at life. It's in the book a couple of different ways. It says we get a life beyond our wildest dreams, but more importantly, this process is a way of life that is beyond our wildest dreams. And then Terry touched on it a couple times. The central fact of our life is the absolute certainty that our Creator's entered our heart in a way that's indeed miraculous. So I'm going to sit here and try to explain this miracle, how it happened with me, because it is indeed miraculous. And what is this, the certainty that God has entered our heart? What's that but God consciousness? That's what this process brings us to. So we do get to watch for our character defects, the 7 deadly sins. We get to do all that stuff, but that's part of the process. And what does it say in the 10-step promises? That, we're placed in a position of neutrality. The problem has been removed. We haven't even sworn off through no effort on our part. I just went through 9 steps of a process that was often uncomfortable. What do you mean no effort on my part? But the miracle is that I go through the process, but suddenly, I'm aware that God has entered my heart in a way that's indeed miraculous. And that's the miracle. I go through the process, God shows up. That's the promise of recovery. That's the promise of the book. I dug out a couple of things when I was actually thought about what I was going to say. And I love the 4 warnings. That what I just talked about was page 25. And people call them the 3rd step promises. But isn't it cool? They don't really come true until we sincerely took the position established on this footing. What footing is this? That our prime directive, draw close to God and perform his work well. 2-part deal we make with God. I talked a couple of weeks ago and it says this is the arch through which we're walking a free man. This 3rd step decision is the keystone. It's the heart and soul of life. It's the heart and soul of everything in recovery. And so it's kind of a big deal. That's why they said we thought well before taking the step. Don't make any major decisions in your first year. If we're asking you to take step 3, it's probably the single most important decision you're ever going to make in your life if you sincerely take this position. So when we do that, now we got a new employer, Terry, being all powerful. God provides what we need if I keep close to him and perform his work well. Show me how to do that. Established on that footing, then I become less interested in myself, my little plans and designs. More and more we become interested in seeing what we can contribute to life as we felt Terry's word, new power flow in, as we enjoyed peace of mind, as we discovered we could face life successfully, as we became conscious of his presence, God consciousness, we began to lose our fear of today, tomorrow, the hereafter, and here's recovery. We are reborn. That's this process. Learn to draw close to God and perform his work well. And Terry started out the spiritual life is not a theory in those beautiful 9-step promises. That is living a selfless life. And we're amazed, like, that's the Scooby-Doo moment. Huh? Step back and look at your life. Are you amazed? Well, yeah. And continue to take personal inventory, and it's different than our inventory in the 4th step. I don't have to go back through my whole life. Look, the 4th step, we discover our grosser handicaps, and most of them are dispelled at step 5. Step 6, when I'm turning my eyes to the perfection which is of God all the time, keep getting better, continue to be aware of pride, anger, lust, envy, greed, gluttony, sloth, selfishness, dishonesty, fear. And we're supposed to be aiming toward God's will. My little exercise was a Babe's Will, God's Will column. And I'd wake up in the morning and look at that, especially the God's Will. And then I'd have my meeting with my guys and I'd go through that little inventory. And then I did it at 10 o'clock coffee break. Then I did it again at lunchtime. Then I did it at 2 o'clock. And that was my little discipline. Terry has the cards with the spiritual exercises. I like his better. Mine was simpler. Then I did it again before I went home, and then I did this stuff at night. And what does it say? The other Scooby-Doo moment, those 9-step promises, we're amazed at what our life looks like. Are these extravagant promises? We think not. They always materialize if I work for them. And then it says, this thought brings us to step 10. Ask your sponsees what thought. That's another Scooby-Doo moment, huh? Well, since this thought brings us to step 10, what thought is that, Bucky? That these will happen if I work for them. How do I work for them? But even before that, it says we have entered the world of the Spirit. And I told you when God took my awakened spirit into his world when Kate was dying. And that's when I lost my bad days and got only selfish days. I had recovered. And Terry's exercises, step-by-step instruction. Continue to watch for these things. But what's cool is that when we practice this discipline long enough, they're second nature. It's just, my sponsor would, if I was being selfish, self-centered, my sponsor would just say, babe, you're being pretty alcoholic. Well, we know when we're living in self, it becomes second nature to us if we just pay attention. So continue to watch for them. And when they crop up, not if, because they do, we're still human. We are not saints. But then what do? I talk to you, and I won't go through all of them because they were Terry's exercises. Talk to God. Quickly make amends. Immediately talk to God. Quickly make amends. Then talk to someone. And yeah, that is the more difficult part. I dump it back to a step 7. God, take this away from me. You got it, buddy. And I let them pile up, and then I talk to someone. But, and then turn my thoughts to someone we could help. How different is that than the way we used to live? I'm upset. I hurt somebody's feelings, and now I'm supposed to get out of myself and help one of God's kids. Less interested in my little plans and designs, and to look at that. And then I love that, at the beginning of the book, it says our very lives depend on our constant thought of others. Then through the thing, it tells step 6, it says we're supposed to do this the rest of our life, aiming toward the perfection of God, draw close to God, perform his work well. And there's so many the rest of our lives and constants in the book. And then the 10-step promises are absolutely beautiful. And that is what recovery looks like. And then it's easy to let up on our lore, to let up on our program, because we practice this discipline all the time. Every minute of every day. A little aside, Terry's clocks and calendars. There are a couple of us on here that are really crummy at clocks and calendars. But here's a fun little exercise. If you're driving down the highway and you think you're going to be late, how many times do you look at the clock as if staring at the clock is going to make you get there on time? That's one that I still have to work at. So I actually put a couple of CDs over the clock. So if I'm going to be late, I don't sit there and look at the stupid clock. It makes more sense to look at the road. But we're prey to clocks and calendars. Terry even says he sets an alarm clock to remind him of this stuff. And so we need the clocks and calendars, and that has absolutely nothing to do with this stuff. But I love that one. But what does it say? 2 things, and we only pay attention to one of them in AA a lot of times, the get out of sin free card. If it be your will, God, let me get lucky tonight. If it be your will, maybe even with my wife, if it be your will. The first thought that must go with us constantly, how can I best serve you, God? Thy will be done. That's the prime directive. Draw close to God, perform his work well. And it says these thoughts must go with us constantly. Well, how can I be thinking of that when I'm supposed to be constantly watching for all this bad crap in my life? Turns out we can do more than one thing at a time. But the directive is to point our way toward how can I best serve you, God? Your will, not mine, be done. It's all draw close to God, perform his work well. That is the keystone to this life beyond our wildest dreams. This is how we get to God consciousness. And it's such it becomes intuitive. It becomes a way of life beyond our wildest dreams. Go figure. And I wrote this years ago that, because the end of the day review, and I have a hard time differentiating between prayer and meditation. They kind of blur together. But, and Bill he had that one little paragraph in the 12 and 12 that's where he's telling us how important all the different kinds of meditation are. And people read 1 or 2 little sentences and think that's all, and it's in step 10. So step 10 must be when we retire at night. the constructive review. That is actually a meditation, by the way. That's why we're being careful not to drift into remorse and morbid reflection. Constructively review how I've done step 10 every minute of that day. And it's cool that it's right in after the italic step 11 when we retire at night. So it is step 11, whether or not you think it's step 10 is irrelevant as long as you're doing it, as long as it doesn't prevent you from doing the real step 10 every second of every day. But, and in the original manuscript, oddly enough, that paragraph was in the morning. Upon awakening, we consider what happened yesterday. So it gets bounced around, but apparently Bill just figures, just do it, But isn't that upon awakening a meditation? Because if we ask to be divorced from selfish, self-seeking motives, then before we think about our day ahead, they say, ask first to have the selfishness removed, and then I can consider my day. But and whether that paragraph when we retire at night, I did a little comparison of the instructions for minute by minute step 10 and the when we retire at night step 11 review. Step 10 says we're supposed to grow in understanding and effectiveness. Step 11 says we're to improve our conscious contact with God. Step 10 says that we watch for selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear. That when we retire at night, were we resentful, dishonest, selfish, or afraid? The day, minute by minute, step 10, we ask God to remove all those things that we find. Step 11, when we retire at night, we ask God for forgiveness and for corrective measures. Step 10 says we discuss them immediately. Step 11 says, do we discuss them with another person at once? Step 10 says we make amends quickly. Step 10 says, do we owe an apology? Step 10 says love and tolerance is our code. Step 11 says, were we kind and loving toward all? Step 10 says we turn our thoughts to someone we can help. Step 11 says, were we thinking of what we could do for others? Same doggone inventory, but one is a meditation, one is a minute-by-minute inventory. The big difference, in step 10, we are becoming God conscious. In step 11, now we're conscious of God's presence. Then we can ask for guidance and actually hear the answer. Direct my thinking, God, to someone I can help. That's why it's important to meditate on the day. That's why it's important to meditate on everything. Because now I have got God's consciousness in my heart. That's why this becomes, Terry touched it, this vital sixth sense, this God consciousness. It's not a series of spiritual exercise that I have to discipline myself to do. We take the exercise so we get the God consciousness and it becomes second nature. That's why we can constantly think, how can I best serve thee? Thy will, not mine, be done. At the same time, looking and being aware where I'm selfish, self-centered, self-seeking, frightened, dishonest, prideful, lustful, envious, greedy, glutton, all of that stuff. I'm not walking around with a 4-column resentment inventory in my head and expanded 2-column fear inventory in my head, or 9 relationships question in my head, but they are in my heart. They become a way of life. I don't have to think about them, but I have a sense when I'm falling into one of those things. And then we talk to God at once. And that's the beauty of this program. So the whole meditation thing, I love that. I mean, step 10 and 11 in the big book are the most precise, clear-cut directions, I think, anywhere in the whole book. And boy, do we muddy them up. How could it be more clear than this is what you do at night? This is what you do when you wake up. This is what you do through the day. This is what you do when the shit's starting to hit the fan. This is what you do every minute. Well, geez, doesn't that sound like step 10? Yeah. Doesn't it sound like step 4? Doesn't it sound like step 5? Doesn't it sound like step 6, 7, 8, and 9? Yeah. And Terry touched on, I think, one of the most important lines in the book. We are undisciplined. We let God discipline us in the way just outlined. Practice these principles in all our affairs. we get to live this way of life. And that's why page 25 is so prophetic in the third step promises. And what does it say? The third step promises come true. By this time, sanity will have been restored. Hey, step 2 finally happened through no effort on my part. Huh? I just went through 9 friggin' steps to get there. I'm responsible. I take action. The results are not up to me. That's just selfish. I take the action and see what happens. And Terry says I'm always happy because I really am. I love being surprised. You can't make me mad. I get a little ticked off. You cut me off at an intersection and my lips are moving. I'm probably not saying the Serenity Prayer. But how long does that bother me? Maybe a half a second. And, I still take revenge if somebody's going to run a stop sign and it's my turn to go. I'll creep through that sucker, that intersection at 2 miles an hour just to show them. I still like playing God. I try not, but the fact of it is I'm aware when I do that. And so it's not necessarily that I'm going to be pure as the driven snow without my cooperation. But how quickly do I get over it? And how do I get over it? Maybe I talk to God at once. Maybe I make amends. I don't go around the block and tailgate the guy. I'm sorry I crept through the intersection. That was selfish of me, because road rage is very real and I ain't very big and I'm old. But do I make amends quickly? Do I talk to somebody about it? And then get out of your head. Who are you going to help today? Get out of yourself and help someone. You all heard me say that's the one time I yelled at Whiny Wendy. And I could say that because she talks about it from the podium. And she actually told a whole college class. The only time Babe, my sponsor, ever yelled at me in 7 years at the time. She's got 8 years now. The only time Babe ever yelled at me, I was being Whiny Wendy, and he yelled at me, why don't you just get out of yourself and go help somebody? And she said, and I did, and everything was okay. I tell her she's going to start a meeting and have to label it the Tissues and Teardrops meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. We get a little emotional in my sponsorship family because this is a life that is beyond our wildest dreams. You can't make this stuff up. And so this whole meditation through the day. And, and I learned transcendental meditation in college. And Terry hit it. The real meaning of meditation is directed thinking, focused thinking. Because I learned to do that because I heard that in a deep meditative state, you get the equivalent of 8 hours sleep in less than 2 hours. I signed me up and I learned it. But what I focused on, I learned this meditation so I could go to school full time, work full time, and drink full time. Meditation alone is not going to get you sober. And I can still do it. I can do the mudras, the mantras. I can do chakras with and without colored lights. I can do Kundalini. I can do that kind of meditation. And it's very relaxing and it can put my mind at peace. But then I can focus. The old 30s dictionary, the description or the example they give of meditation is a general will meditate on the battle ahead. I don't think the general preparing for a battle is contemplating his navel. I think he's given concentrated thought and mental effort into what is expected of him as a general. So our meditation is what is expected of us as a recovered alcoholic. And that kind of meditation. And I can do that. I can actually do a cleansing breath and get centered. I can do it at the end of the meeting when somebody says, take a moment of silence. One cleansing breath and I'm centered and I'm fully present in that prayer at the end of the meeting. I can do it at a stop sign. But it's all much more fun just to piss the guy off. I can do it. And that became a habit. I've been doing it for over 50 years, so it becomes just a part of my life, just like this program is. And that's the joy of this whole thing, this whole practice of inventory. And I will shut up, but I love what Bill learned in the 12 and 12 in meditation, if I can find it. First he talks about meditation. Well, hell, I might as well read it. Those of us who have come to make regular use of prayer, he's talking about, would no more do without it than we would refuse air, food, or sunshine. Is that what you're praying for? Is it that much a part of my life? Yep. And for the same reason, when we refuse air, light, or food, our body suffers. When we turn away from meditation and prayer, we likewise deprive our minds, our emotions, our intuitions of vitally necessary, needed support. As the body can fail its purpose for lack of nourishment, so can the soul. I love that. My soul, and how many times in the book does it tell us about soul sickness? My soul suffers when I'm not being nourished by the sunlight of the Spirit. We all need the light of God's reality, the nourishment of God's strength, and the atmosphere of his grace. To an amazing extent, the facts of AA life confirm this ageless truth. That's what AA is there for, to help us step into the sunlight of the Spirit. In this paragraph, the direct linkage amongst self-examination, meditation, and prayer. Taken separately, each of these practices can bring much relief and benefit. So I can run around doing the inventory all the time. We're supposed to be doing that in step 10, remember? But without the prayer and the meditation, that's helpful, because if I'm looking for all those things, I can maybe avoid them, but I might still be relying on me. But so they can bring relief and benefit, but when they are logic related and interwoven, the result is an unshakable foundation for life. Now and then we may be granted a glimpse of that ultimate reality, which is God's kingdom. God takes our awakened spirit into his world sometimes. Said that in step 10, we have entered the world of the Spirit. Huh? I just want to put the plug in the jug. And what does it say? And we will be comforted and assured in our own destiny in that realm. How's that for a way of life? A destiny in the realm of God? Whoa, what an order. I can't go through with it. Yes, we can. Every single one of us. That's why AA is so powerful, because a bunch of broken souls just like me said, you can do this, buddy. Try this process. Pick up this kit of spiritual tools. Do THIERRY's exercises. Do the work. And you'll be amazed. Your life will be beyond your wildest dreams. And then it'll be secure so long as we try, however falteringly, to find and do the will of our own Creator. Back to the prime directive. Draw close to God and perform his work well. So it is a way of life beyond our wildest dreams that will give us a life beyond our wildest dreams by following the way. And the way is pick up the kit of spiritual tools, give it a try. What do you got to lose? That's enough out of me.
Thank you, babe. That's fantastic. Thank you, Terry. Glad you made it to work safe. Would one of you like to close us out with a prayer or reading of your choice?
We'll do a thank you prayer. Moment of silence for the alcoholic who still suffers inside and outside these rooms. Most importantly, their families who are caught in the crossfire. God, thank you.
Thank you. Amen.
Amen.
Pew, pew, pew.
Love it. Love it.
I like those prayers I can remember.
Pew, pew, pew. Terry and Babe, thank you guys. I needed to hear you guys today. Thank you for having this meeting. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Love you guys. Bye-bye.
Okay, fantastic.